Welcome to the Autism in Black podcast, where we focus on all things autism and the Black parent experience. Our goal is to always educate, support, and empower parents to advocate for not only their children, but themselves. Hello, and welcome to the Autism in Black podcast. I'm Maria Davis-Pierre, a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida and America's #1 autism advocate for Black parents. I'm the founder and CEO of Autism in Black, Inc., where we aim to include the excluded. Today, we have Dr. Davis-Pierre, who is a board-certified internal medicine physician, host of the Lunch and Learn podcast, and founder of PP5 Marketing. As you all know, Dr. Davis-Pierre is also my husband. Today's show is a recap of our 3rd annual Autism in Black conference. We talk about things that we've learned, things that we have planned for next year. We also talk about the membership community that we introduced as well. So as always, if you are interested in joining our Autism in Black community, getting access to the replays from this year's conference, or getting a ticket to next year's conference, those links will be in the show notes. Enjoy today's episode.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Medicine Mondays. Yours truly, Dr. Davis-Pierre. We have a special guest, and we are going to be talking about an amazing. We're coming off a high, a natural high, right? Not like a drug-induced high, but a natural high. Coming fresh off the 3rd annual Autism in Black conference, we again have one of my favorite guests, obviously no bias, Maria Davis-Pierre, CEO of Autism in Black. Maria, again, thank you for stopping by this show this week. Let's have conference talk. I'm actually very excited. Let's have some conference talk. How are you doing?
I'm good, husband. How are you?
Very well, very well. So, during the introduction, right, that mini introduction we had, I talked about recapping the 3rd annual conference. Give us your initial thoughts and feelings coming off your now 3rd successful virtual conference.
Wow. This year was a different type of feeling that I had, because I felt like we really hit the marks this year. I felt so good, just all the feedback. People saying that it was the most neuro-affirming space that they've been in, that people telling me who've been to many conferences that this was the best conference that they've ever been to. So this year felt very different for me. I felt such a sense of accomplishment. So happy that, we get to provide this space year after year, and it just gets better. So this year I really felt good.
So leading up to the conference, because obviously when you're in the planning process, you're choosing speakers, you're choosing themes, you kind of envision what you want that picture to look like, or more importantly, what the end product to be. Mm-hmm. Was that something that you set out prior to starting all? Like, I want to kind of go in this direction, and were you a success at doing it?
Yes. I really wanted to, again, our goal is always to have a safe space, but also make sure we are highlighting lived experiences of individuals who are autistic or individuals who are neurodivergent. That was our main focus this year. And I think that we actually, successfully hit that goal.
Now, were there certain things that you've added from a wrinkle standpoint to this year's conference that you hadn't done in the first 2 to really try to drive that goal home?
I think we advertised that more this year, that we are Black autistic led and Black neurodivergent led. I think we just led out the gate this year, letting people know. So I think that really helped us. Of course, we always take into the consideration the feedback from past attendees and try to, hit those deficits that were there. This year, we did have a AAC user, which was amazing. I know that something that has been one of our, please try to do this next year, have someone who is non-speaking or AAC user. So we did have that this year, and it was just a fulfilling moment for me.
When we talk, and I want to kind of break down, because obviously the conference is a kind of 3-day process. So I want you to kind of go day by day by day, and what were some of the highlights? What were some of the things and lessons that you kind of learned from that? And then obviously we'll kind of end that conclusion, right? So let's talk about day one, right? For a lot of people, obviously it's a 2-day conference, but you do kind of a VIP day. Let's talk about like that first day of the start of the conference.
Yes, our VIP day was that Friday, and it started off with a group session with me. I did a presentation, and then they got to ask one-on-one questions. All of the questions that they had inside, and since it was also more intimate than the actual 300 attendees that attended the conference, they also got to connect with each other, build more intimate networking since they're seeing each other and talking with each other. So that was our first session. And then the second session was our professionals panel. So we had advocates on there. We had clinical psychologists, school psychologists, we had a physician, we had therapists, all types of professionals on this professional panel. And these VIPers got to ask all of their burning questions to this panel. We had over 2 hours with this professional panel, and they were just getting all of their questions answered. So that was an amazing kickoff to what would then go to be Saturday, which was opening day of the conference. I opened the conference, just inviting everybody in, setting the stage up. And then we had a full day of sessions. We had Cheryl Poe that day, Shamika Allen. We had the autistic adult panel session, which was amazing again. And we actually added time. So it was a 2-hour panel session. Then we had Sunday. Sunday, we again opened the conference strong, had many, many amazing speakers, had the parenting panel session. Heather Clark did her thing. I mean, she had an amazing session. And then me and you closed that day out and introduced the Autism in Black community to everybody. So yeah, it was a great weekend.
So if we had to hold you to the fire and say, hey, Maria, each day you got to choose, your favorite presentation. And I want you to kind of put yourself kind of in the mindset of the audience, right? Like, as far as which one got the most, feedback and comments and everything else. What would you say would have been probably like the highlights from a presentation perspective?
Oh my goodness, that's a hard one. That is a hard one because everybody's presentation was wonderful. One thing I say about our conference attendees is that even though they know that they get lifetime access to the recordings, they still showed up consistently to every single session. They were like, oh goodness, we need a break next year. So I really can't answer that question because it was consistent, and each and every speaker brought themselves in a different way to that session. So I enjoyed everyone's session.
It's interesting, especially you kind of mentioned, obviously this is a virtual conference. This is a conference you can, and you get lifetime access to the recording. So sometimes that does make a lot of people say, hey, you know what? I could miss this session. I could miss that session. I'm going to get the recordings anyway. But to still have that energy for people wanting to check in, because the conference started what, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, or
8:30.
8:30. So if we're going to start early in the morning, and for those who, my lunch and learn community, y'all know a lot of times when we have these conferences, you always have that early morning session, but a lot of times you kind of treat it as the sleeping session. Like, I'm just sleeping on this one, and then I'll catch kind of the later one. So to have people at attention, ready to go at 8:30 on a Saturday and a Sunday, just really kind of speaks to the testament of, the words and the power and the empowerment that they're retrieving, like from some of these amazing presenters.
Yeah, we even had a individual we had a lot of people who bought tickets from California, but one of them made sure that they were actually up at 4:30 a.m. their time both days, so they didn't miss anything. And that was like really a testament to the dedication and showing what we're actually providing to the community. You know, they were just like, this has been such an amazing experience, and I am just so thankful. It has truly got me back into wanting to advocate and wanting to do what's necessary for our community.
And you kind of mentioned the community aspect of it. You kind of mentioned the fact that we kind of ended the conference starting the Autism Black membership community. Let's talk a little bit about that. I think we should definitely. I want to kind of do a little deep dive on what the community is. And more importantly, let's start from the beginning. Like, why did you think it was important to say, you know what, we need to have our own membership community following this conference? What was the kind of driving goal for it?
A lot of feedback from attendees who were saying that they don't want the feeling of the Autism in Black conference just one time a year. They want to constantly have that feeling, that source of community, that source of support that focuses on the Black experience. And they want that all throughout the year, not just one weekend out the year. So, you know, me and you put our heads together to try to develop a community that could fit that, right? So out came the Autism in Black community.
So let's talk a little bit about it. Like, what does it entail? You know, what do people kind of derive from it? Like, what are some of the nuts and bolts associated with the Autism Black community?
So each month we have themed content that we'll be covering. So you automatically get a mini course and a mini ebook. Every week I will be doing a live Q&A. So you get to bring your questions with me every week. We have a father's corner. We have a couples corner. We do weekly check-ins for professionals and parents. Oh my goodness, we have so much going on in the community. But what we wanted to ensure is that something is we're communicating with the community each and every day, and that you do have time to really get your questions answered and feel that community and feel that support. We are trying to expand to have Autism in Blacks in every state, in every city. And this is just the stepping stone to that. So we are very excited about the membership.
Now, I think one thing, especially with the community, more importantly, just the conference in general, and you kind of mentioned it, was the fact of how important it was to be able to network. Mm-hmm. This is a community that in the past, and really even in the present, has always felt very disjointed, always felt that information was kind of segregated away from those who really needed it. So when you have a conference like this, who brings the professionals, brings the people on the ground, brings the parents, brings the caretakers together and says, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we do it, and this is, more importantly, how we can benefit you, it definitely speaks volumes. And when we talk about just the membership community, it was trying to answer that call of, hey, you guys do such a great job at bringing us together once a year, but we don't want that feeling to go away. You don't want that feeling of closeness, that feeling of being safe to go away until the next conference, which is, again, a reason why we say, you know what, we're going to go all in on this community aspect. We're going to go all in and making sure we're reaching out, right? You know, obviously from a virtual standpoint, with the parents, reaching out with the caretakers, reaching out with the fathers, right? Reaching out and making sure that information, because we know information is power. Information is what gets us from point A to point B to point C. And a lot of times, because of our lack of information, or more importantly, how difficult it is to get that information, we run into some roadblocks. I had a mini father's corner after the conference, and I remember talking to this father who was kind of going through the struggles and talking about the struggles, and it was very clear that there was just information that I think if that father would have known, and if that family would have known, would have probably contributed to less stress, but because they didn't know it, because they didn't know to ask the right questions, because they didn't know which services are required and not required, because they just didn't know, they were going down, a bunch of hurdles that we felt like, oh yeah, you should be able to do this and that. And again, that was just off kind of a one time. So I can only imagine how important this community is going to be at not only building the camaraderie, not only building the networking, but being able to empower those who you touch.
Exactly. I think that, one of the things that, again, propelled us in starting this entire organization and everything that we do was the gap in information getting to our community. A lot of times, by the time it gets to our community, there's new information out. So that was one of the things we wanted to be able to do, is make sure we're having the right information, make sure we're well equipped when we're going into these meetings, when we're advocating on behalf of ourselves or our children, and that we know what needs to be said to get things done. Because a lot of times we put our trust into the school system or the healthcare system, thinking that they have our best interests at our heart or our children's best interests in heart. And oftentimes that's not the case. So yeah, we definitely want to make sure that the individuals in the community have the information, they have the support, they have the backup, because it can also feel isolating and lonely when you don't have anybody in your support circle who is raising an autistic child, or, has any autistic family members, so they're not understanding these sorts of things. So having that community where you can have that space where you don't have to explain as you are trying to get your support, right? Just makes it easier and more fulfilling.
So obviously we've been talking about a community. Where can someone go to kind of find more information about the community? Be able to kind of share it with a friend. Where can people go to kind of get some more information on that?
You can go to autisminblack.org/membership. You can check out the benefits of signing up monthly or going ahead and paying a yearly membership. You can definitely go ahead and register, sign up, and join us over on in the community.
Absolutely love it. So what typically happens during these conferences is that when you're the organizer, when you're the creator, it's sometimes difficult to live in the moment because you work so hard to plan, to maneuver, to get people where they need to be, to get the speakers where they need to be, to get the attendees where they need to be, especially because we do it on a third-party app. That a lot of times it's difficult to kind of be in said moment. How difficult is it for you sometimes to kind of be in the moment, because you're doing hosting, you're creating this conference, but you're receiving all of this love at the same time?
It's hard to manage it all, because I think, when you are in the moment of actually doing the conference, you're focused on making sure people are where they need to be. There's a lot of back end stuff that people are not seeing. And then, our team is not this grand team that a lot of people think we are. It's, me, you, and our assistant, Corey. So it's just harder to stay in that moment because we are doing a lot of back end stuff. But I can say that at the end of each day, I read the comments, I take it all in, I refer to the team, see what's going on. So I think I'm not able to be in the moment, but after that day is done, I do take the time to take it in and just be like, oh my God, we got through day one, or oh my God, we did a whole another year of the conference and we were successful. So for me, it happens after the day's events.
So yes, we would love to live in the moment, but as a creator, right, as an organizer, and really more importantly, as someone who really has the eyes, the ears, and sometimes it serves as a voice for such a significant community, you don't necessarily have the ability to kind of focus on just the year, because you actually gave us some insight on next year's conference. So let's talk about next year's conference. Obviously, where is it? When is it? The theme. And what are your early thoughts? Obviously, this is the too early to be talking about section, but I think if you are at the conference, you already know that the conference dates are already set. So let's talk about next year's conference, 2024.
Yeah, we had to really start planning 2024 because before this year's conference, people were already wanting to put in their dates for next year to make sure that they were off or, had the time. You were already planning next year's conference. So yeah, we are knee deep in 2024 conference, the fourth annual Autism in Black virtual conference. The theme is Bridging the Gap, which we're very excited about. And the dates are April 19th through the 21st of 2024. We're going to be using Hoover app again. And we're excited. We have a lot of plans in store for 2024. Just to make the event even greater, which is something that we always strive to do, is to build each year.
So you talk about the theme as far as bridging the gap. What was the thought process behind that theme?
That theme was actually voted on by attendees. So all of our themes have been voted on by attendees of things that they think that, we should focus on. And then we take the theme that they have voted on, and we kind of put the sessions in alignment with that. We kind of scale out what this would look like for us. So we're in the process of scaling out what Bridging the Gap would look like for the fourth annual conference.
Oh, love it. So again, I think obviously, especially being in the community, especially give flowers when the flowers are due, give flowers when people can smell it. And when you're in the middle, right, or where you're and I honestly, probably the beginning, right? When you're in the beginning of such a significant journey, it's one thing to make sure that you're stopping to smell the roses given. So obviously, I want to shout you out right here and right now, especially with your community, because I know for a fact your community loves you. I know for a fact your community is so excited and so happy that you decided to say, hey, you know what? I want to take on the mission of bridging the gap. I want to take on the mission of making sure that I empower my community with the information they need to help themselves, to help their children. So your flowers from a virtual standpoint are here. And on the days when it's like, oh, this is a lot of work, I want you to remember that you have such a huge community that I guess loves the hell out of you, right? Like, and I think it's been so evident year after year after year, the way they show up, the way they continue to show up, the way they continue to sing your praises. I want to make sure we took a nice little block to say thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, husband. That really means a lot to me. And thank you for pushing me, one, because you do a lot of pushing me outside of my comfort zone, and also being the complete tech person behind all things Autism in Black. So without your knowledge and expertise, we definitely wouldn't be able to do a lot that we do. So thank you as well.
So where especially because this may be the first time someone, saw you on the Medicine Monday show or heard you on the podcast, where can people find you?
You can go to our website, autisminblack.org, and it has links to most everything there, our shop, our conference, our membership community. So you can go right there. You can also find me on Instagram, where I'm most active, and my username is Autism in Black. If you are wanting conference tickets for next year, because we are doing pre-sale, you can go to autisminblack.org/conference 2024. And again, if you are wanting to join our membership, this is an ongoing enrollment. So there's no due dates or anything. You can enroll at any time. You can go to autismblack.org/membership.
Love it. Again, Lunchtime Community Medicine Monday watchers, appreciate you. This is, again, for especially my podcast listeners, this is the voice you hear every intro on the podcast. And I tell people all the time, and sometimes they don't believe me, in the household of the Pierre party of 5, I'm like the little fish in here. I am just, Barry Pierre. I am, I'm not Dr. Barry. I'm not, it doesn't matter when we have a big wig. And the reason why we have big wig, because she has a big mission and she has a huge community that absolutely loves her, and we love her for that. So again, Maria, thank you for joining this week's episode of Medicine Mondays.
Thank you for having me. If you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can always be notified when a new episode drops. To get the resources shared on today's podcast and the show notes, make sure to go to autisminblack.org/podcast. And be sure to share your takeaways from the show on IG stories and Twitter using our official hashtag AIBPod so that we can find them and share them. And if you want to continue the conversation from today's episode, make sure to join our Autism in Black podcast Facebook community. And please make sure to answer the questions to gain entry. Thank you for listening and joining me this week. Have a good one.